Alright, so we had a whole intro planned for this week where, we were going to do our usual silly stuff. We were going to do, there's this weird conservative style college that's opening up. And we do, a fake advertisement where we do this, that, side effects, the kind of stuff we do. But this needs to be said. So, while we were filming The Thing this week, it was during the Kyle Rittenhouse murder trial. And the outro and the intro that you're seeing now were filmed after the conclusion of the trial. Now look, it's a really, really nice feeling to be right. There's no sweeter sensation in the universe than a resounding, "Ha! Told you so." This ain't it. It's just not like this. So, I hope that through this episode, you're able to find something that might make you laugh, or some information that might help you to make the world a bit of a better place, however you can. It's what I'm doing about it, and it's what you ought to do about it. Enjoy the show.
Recorded in Round Rock, Texas, in front of a live teleconferenced audience, it's the What's Update with Xander Quation.
Season 3, Crackpots, Karens, and Robber Barons.
Yeah!
Hey! Welcome to the What's Update. I'm Xander Quation. Let's get started. In a closed-door meeting in Beijing, senior party officials of China's Communist Party cleared the way for Xi Jinping to secure a third 5-year term as the party's general secretary. They did this by rewriting their country's history, elevating Xi to the level of Communist Party luminaries Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. Why should anyone care that they're rewriting their history books? They probably pirated them anyways. And speaking of people living in oppressive dictatorships, a California judge has ended Britney's 13-year conservatorship.
Woohoo!
Spears told the court in June that the arrangement, which was overseen by her father, Jamie Spears, had traumatized and exploited her and stripped her of control of nearly every aspect of her life. If they win in 2024, Republicans are expected to nominate Jamie Spears to head up ICE.
Oh, damn.
That's not the worst thing we've ever said. Come on.
I mean, you're right.
SpaceX recently completed another successful autonomous flight, this time with 4 astronauts returning from a 6-month stay on the International Space Station. The capsule splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico without much trouble, aside from a delay on one of the parachutes during deployment. Well, I can't say that I blame that parachute. I don't like to get wet in the Gulf either. That green-ass water is nasty.
Yup.
In other extraterrestrial news, astronomers report that a recently discovered solar system has planets in a very strange orbit. In our solar system, and most that we have previously observed, the planets orbit in the same flat plane as each other, along the solar equator. The star HD 3167, however, also has 2 outer planets that orbit along its north-south poles. New for Pride Month, a non-binary star!
Ha!
Moderna and the National Institute of Health are engaged in a heated dispute over who gets credit for the invention of the central component of Moderna's COVID vaccine. Moderna scientists collaborated with the NIH, which is the U.S. government's biomedical research agency, for 4 years. In their July patent and trademark filing, Moderna left 3 of the NIH's scientists, Drs. Corbett, Graham, and Mascola, off the patent application. Meanwhile, the team of scientists in charge of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine are happy to tell people at parties about their very successful Chia Pet psychiatry practices. Google is once again pursuing a contract with the Pentagon, 3 years after an employee revolt caused them to abandon a previous project. In 2018, a backlash from thousands of employees caused them to abandon participation in Project Maven, a military program that uses artificial intelligence to interpret video images that can be used to refine the targeting of drone strikes. The new project, called the Joint Warfighting cloud capability, seeks to modernize the Pentagon's cloud technology and support the use of artificial intelligence on the battlefield, as a replacement for a contract with Microsoft that was canceled this summer. When asked for comment, Google CEO Sundar Pichai responded, "I need your clothes, your boots, and 90% of your RAM." Really, that's the one? A California middle school removed a history teacher who told her students that Trump is still president and they shouldn't get vaccinated against COVID. A teacher at Anacapa Middle School in Ventura was also recorded telling students that, quote, Hunter Biden, for example, is doing deals with China and Ukraine where he was funneling money illegally. He also had child pornography on his laptop. He was having sexual intercourse with his own niece.
What?
The teacher is somehow still employed by Ventura Unified, the district that oversees Anacapa Middle School, but her students have been moved to another teacher.
Yep.
So, let me get this straight. She's still getting paid for a job she did poorly. She spread misinformation to a captive audience about the election, and she thinks COVID's a hoax? I mean, if she were in Texas, they wouldn't have put her on paid leave. They put her in charge of the Texas Education Agency.
Oh, damn.
These are dark times we're living in. In other education news, the University of Florida is under fire after it barred 3 professors from testifying in a lawsuit against the administration of Governor Ron DeSantis. An inquiry has been opened into whether the university's orders violate long-established principles of academic freedom or involve undue political influence by the body that accredits the university. You know what they say, those who ignore history probably hold office in Florida.
Yeah.
Not to be outdone, Texas is being sued over Greg Abbott's new voting law. The U.S. Justice Department is arguing that the law, part of the 666 laws the Republican legislature rammed through in September, violates the Voting Rights Act by limiting the help that poll workers can provide to voters. The law also requires mail-in ballots to be thrown out if they fail to include a voter's current driver's license number, an election identification number, or part of a social security number, which violates the Civil Rights Act. They say that this law would disenfranchise Texans who do not speak English, people with disabilities, older voters, and those who live outside the United States. Abbott's legal team responded to the accusations simply stating, well, yeah, isn't that kind of the point? After which, all of the Republican members of the Justice Department happily skipped away. In yet another case, a federal judge ruled that Texas Governor Greg, why yes, I do hate poor people, Abbott's ban on mask mandates violates children's civil rights. Judge Lee Yeakel of the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Texas ruled that Abbott's order violated the 1990 Americans with Disabilities Act because it put children with disabilities at risk. A guy in a wheelchair hurting kids with disabilities? It's kind of like pulling up the ramp after you rolled to the top, Greg. Not cool. At least 7 people who attended the maggot rally that preceded the 1/6 insurrection are now holding public office instead of their soap in a prison shower room. Three of them have been elected to the Virginia House of Delegates. 2 won re-election, and the other, Marie March, won an open seat. March told reporters that she had no regrets about attending Insurrection Bonnaroo. You know what? I'm really not surprised. Feeling regret requires having a conscience to begin with. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Woohoo! Yeah! Yeah! Woo! Yeah! Yahoo!
Welcome back. Anyone that had eyeballs and a social media account this week got a real good look at some seriously Razzie-worthy acting, playing live and on tape at the Kenosha County Courthouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I mean, I've heard of crocodile tears, but damn, son. Let's set aside the highly questionable actions of presiding judge Bruce E. Schroeder, ranging from banning the use of the word victims when referring to the people murdered, to making some pretty off-color jokes about Asian food, to clearing the court to dress down prosecutors for 2 lines of questioning the judge didn't like. Let's also table any discussions of the Rittenhouse legal team, headed by former prosecutors turned defense attorneys, Mark D. Richards and Corey Chirafisi, for calling a mistrial. The men argued that there had been prosecutorial overreaching, and called for a mistrial with prejudice, which would mean Kyle Rittenhouse could not be retried for murder.
What?
And if I may be so bold, I really hope that the city of Kenosha is bracing for the inevitable backlash and potential for riots that are all but certain to occur, regardless of the verdict. Your feelings on whether justice will be served depends a great deal on whether you sleep with a Glock under your pillow or not. It is not remotely outside the realm of possibility that Rittenhouse will be acquitted of all charges by a jury with only 1 black juror. The question of a fair and impartial trial wouldn't be up for debate if our justice system was also fair and impartial. But, only a great fool, or I'd say a Fox News zombie.
Is there a difference?
Best I can tell, no, but that's not what's important right now. So, here's the thing. Justice in the United States is only available to the whitest,
Zan.
highest bidder.
Better.
Only available to the highest bidder. The American justice system is, much like many of our other institutions, irrevocably broken. Let's start by taking a look at the incarceration disparity in Louisiana alone. 32% of Louisiana's population is black, and yet 67.8% of prisoners and 73.9% of people sentenced to life in prison are black. That means that in Louisiana, black people are incarcerated at 4 times the rate of white people. Not enough? Okay. Based on population, a black person was 2.9 times as likely, and a Latinx person was 1.4 times as likely to be killed by police as a white person in America from 2013 to 2020. Although African Americans and Latinos constitute only 29% of the U.S. population, they make up 57% of the U.S. prison population. Of the 277,000 people imprisoned nationwide for a drug offense, 56% are African American or Latinx. A black person is 5 times more likely to be stopped without just cause than a white person, and about 1 in every 1,000 black men can expect to be killed by cops. Just 1 out of 1,000. Let that sink in. That means that at least 5 people from my high school can expect to be killed by cops. And I went to school in the suburbs. If African Americans and Hispanic Americans were incarcerated at the same rates as whites, the number of people in prison or jail would decline by almost 40%. Clearly, there is an extreme disparity in the application of justice in America. This is not new. I'm sure this is going to kick up some dust for the butthurt, just say no to critical race theory types. Like Texas Governor Greg, why yes, you can punch down from a sitting position. Abbott. But the unequal treatment and use of law enforcement to quash the rights of people of color, specifically black people, in the United States, is as much of a foundational pillar for the creation of our nation as lying to Native Americans, institutional misogyny, and rounding up Japanese Americans to be put in concentration camps during World War II. Just a quick history lesson for those of you currently attending public school and parochial schools in Texas, and the other red states clamoring to follow its lead. Our modern-day policing struggles have historical precedents in the slave patrols of colonial America. The first slave patrols were established in the Carolinas in the early 1700s. Their mission was simple: establish a system of terror in response to slave uprisings. They were charged with pursuing, apprehending, and returning runaway slaves to their owners. They had leeway to use excessive force to control and produce desired slave behavior. Slave patrols could forcibly enter any home based on the mere possibility of retrieving runaway slaves. Officially, slave patrols only continued until the end of the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment. Unofficially, Well, we've all seen what happens to unarmed black people when the cops show up. You could ask George Floyd, Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, or Jacob Blake, but some trigger-happy peace officers made sure they could never tell anyone anything ever again. And don't get me started on how the Second Amendment was a gimme to the southern states during debate over the Bill of Rights. It seems they wouldn't sign off on the other 9 amendments if they had to give up roving militias of white men looking to enforce slavery and the creation of the Three-Fifths Compromise. Let's contrast that for a moment with how police deal with white male lawbreakers. Dylan Roof, American white supremacist and neo-Nazi, walked into a Charleston church and murdered 9 black people attending services one evening. He was captured, taken to jail, awaited trial, and was convicted. Or how about Nicholas Cruz, who strolled into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School with a loaded AR-15 and a backpack full of ammo, and murdered 14 students and 3 staff members. He was captured, taken to jail, awaited trial, and was convicted. Well, let's not forget James Alex Fields Jr., who deliberately drove his car into a crowd of people that were peacefully protesting the Unite the Right neo-Nazi Burning Crosses rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, killing 1 and injuring 35. He was captured, taken to jail, awaited trial, and was convicted. And then there's Robert Bowers, an anti-Semitic white supremacist, but I repeat myself, that walked into the Pittsburgh Or the Simcha congregation during Saturday morning Shabbat services and committed the deadliest attack ever on the Jewish community in the United States. Bowers murdered 11 people and wounded 6, including several Holocaust survivors. He was captured, taken to jail, awaited trial, and was convicted. At least we know those murderers were convicted. Let's not forget that just a little over 10 months ago, an armed horde of deeply delusional and dangerous Trump cult devotees stormed the U.S. Capitol building with the intent to kill, going as far as building a gallows for their own vice president. Many civilians and 138 police officers were injured. There was extensive damage to the building. Offices and chambers were vandalized and ransacked. Property was stolen, and more than $30 million of taxpayer money was needed for repairs and new security measures. 5 people died, and 4 Capitol Police officers committed suicide. While more than 615 people have been charged with federal crimes, the ringleaders are still on the loose. They all seem to have something in common. I just can't really figure out what it is. It's been nearly a year, and not one of them has been charged, tried, or convicted of sedition and/or insurrection. You thought I was gonna say because they're a bunch of shitty old white men, didn't you, Bridget?
Yeah, a little bit.
Hey, you have a little faith. It's like you don't even know me anymore. And that brings us back to on-cue blubber boy Kyle Rittenhouse. Pumpkin here is a special case. Kyle's mommy drove him across state lines, armed with an illegally acquired assault rifle, after attending a MAGA rally, picked a fight, and shot 3 people, murdering 2. Not only was he not shot on sight by the many officers on the scene, but video showed police thank him and offer him water prior to the killings. He was even allowed to leave the scene, even though, as caught on video, he walked towards police with his hands up as protesters yelled that he had shot people. Just for a moment, imagine that cherub-cheeked minor militia man-boy was instead a young black man. How long do you really think he would have lasted wading into a sea of cops with a loaded assault rifle in his hands? I feel pretty confident saying they wouldn't have high-fived him and offered him a cold, tasty beverage. Given the progression of the trial thus far, it's not too hard to imagine Kyle getting away with murder. American social reformer, abolitionist, orator, writer, and statesman Frederick Douglass once wrote, "Where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither persons nor property will be safe." We'll be right back with Alison Haislip. Stick around.
Yeah. Woohoo!
The first gaming console I ever played was the Atari 2600. My parents had it when I was born, or they got it very, very closely after I was born. So right around the time when I was like 5, which is about the age when I could sort of figure out how to move a joystick and push a big orange button, I was playing video games on the Atari. Now the best part about that story is that we had the Atari set up in our basement to the black and white TV that we had down there. And it wasn't until one Christmas where we went to my grandmother's house and we brought the Atari with us and hooked it up to her television that I knew that any of the Atari games were in color.
Welcome back. Let's hop right in with our 3 standard questions. Who, you, what's due, and why?
Who me? Alison Haislip. What do? That's the next one, right?
Yes.
What do? I am an actress and a host. And why? Because we love you. LUSE. No, because I love it. And I'm a big believer in, you live one life, so do what you love.
All right.
That's beautiful.
Is there anything you're working on or have coming out soon that you'd like to tell our audience about?
Yeah, well, actually, today I literally just shot a pilot for something that I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it is yet, but I would say that fans of mine from the video gaming G4 world will be happy with it, should it come out. So everyone just keep your fingers crossed, because pilots always got to get picked up first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on to more specific questions. Your bio says that you've been acting since you were 12, and then after graduating college, you studied theater at the British American Drama Academy. What was that experience like?
That was amazing. I actually did that while I was at college. I studied at Bada the summer in between my junior and senior year of college, I believe.
Dang, you're a hard charger.
Yeah, and it was over, they call it like a summer in Oxford. So I got to stay in Balliol College in Oxford, which, basically looks like where they shot all the Harry Potter movies. And I got to work with some of the biggest and brightest in the Shakespeare community. John Barton was one of my teachers while I was there. And he sadly passed away, I think 2 or 3 years ago now. But he was known as the premier Shakespeare scholar. And getting to work with him was an absolute dream. Deborah Warner, who's a big British director, we got to work with her. And she actually directed Fiona Shaw in, I think it was Medea, right? That same summer. And so our whole class got to go see Fiona Shaw in Medea, which was unreal. But it was an incredible experience. And you get to live in Oxford for a summer. Why not?
And taking all the history, the sights, the sounds, the plays, and all that. It must have been incredible.
It's the best. And especially because I'm a huge J.R. Tolkien fan. And that's where he and C.S. Lewis, there's a pub there in Oxford called The Eagle and Child, I believe, but it's nicknamed The Bird and the Baby. And that's where they meet to have to go over their manuscripts and to talk about each other's writings and things like that. So I got to walk to that from where I was, which was amazing.
And back to the bit with the Shakespeare instructor. I've done plenty of Shakespeare in my time, and honestly, I love doing it. So, did you ever have a favorite role at a Shakespeare play?
Well, actually, when I got back to Boston College after that summer, very conveniently, they decided to do Hamlet as one of their main stage productions, and I was cast as Ophelia, which I had always wanted to play her. So the fact that I got to play her in college right after having studied with the Shakespearean greats was really incredible.
Well, yeah, things work out sometimes.
Yeah.
I particularly like the roles that either the fools or the monsters. So
yeah, they're the fun ones.
Yeah, from Nick Bottom to Caliban.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be Puck in Midsummer.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Production that one I did a while back was to make Puck a little bit more off. Puck was actually 2 actors that spoke simultaneously at certain parts, just to make it seem a bit weird.
Oh, that's cool though. I love when people get creative with Shakespeare. I mean, sometimes it goes a little too far, but why not have fun with it?
Like the what was it, the 90s Boston Romeo and Juliet. Sometimes you get a bit too creative.
Oh no, that one, that is genius. That movie is so good. There's not only is it so good, it has like the best soundtrack to come out of that time.
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of the 90s soundtracks are always good.
I know. Movies don't have like these banger soundtracks anymore. Although I did just watch Birds of Prey. I was on a plane a couple days ago and I watched Birds of Prey finally on my flight. And the whole movie, I was like, why is no one talking about how good this soundtrack is?
And then you got, if you got James Gunn on a movie like with the new The Suicide Squad, and like the soundtrack's gonna be good.
Yeah, of course.
Like every previous DC movie is like, please take us seriously, please.
Yeah.
And then James Gunn is like, I'm using all the music and you can't stop me.
Right. I'm James Gunn. Hear me roar.
You stayed pretty busy as a regular contributor on G4 for a number of years. During that time, you hosted American Ninja Warrior and several Doctor Who specials. Do you prefer acting or hosting in that regard?
Well, it really just depends on what you're asking about. Like I'm far more passionate about acting. I find it far more exciting just because it's something you can really dig into. You can always study it. You can always learn more. You can always go deeper with it. That being said, I have had some of the most fun in my life from hosting. I've had amazing hosting gigs that have traveled me all over the world. I've met amazing people. I've gotten to do more stuff gosh, I've been hosting maybe do math, Allison, 14 years, I guess, since I started hosting. And I've probably done more in those 14 years than most people have done in their lifetimes because of the opportunities hosting has brought me.
What's the craziest thing you've ever had to host, or like the craziest thing that happened while you're hosting something?
Oh, well, G4 had me do all sorts of insane like action adventure stuff. I was just telling someone this the other day. The craziest thing I probably did, besides swimming with sharks twice, they put me, I went to a racetrack for the launch of the new Suzuki Superbike. And superbikes are those like tiny motorcycles that dudes will race in sort of like a crazy twisty turny track, but they go so fast that when they lean, it's like their knees are dragging around. And so they send me out to this racetrack to talk about this bike and like chat with one of the racers. And I show up and my sound guy is like miking me. He's like, so are you really going to get on the back of one of these things going $160? And I was like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, yeah, apparently they're going to make you like, you're going to get on the back of the bike while the racer takes you around the track. And I'm like, and we're going to go 160 miles an hour? And he's like, yeah. And my producer's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's totally fine. They do this all the time with media. And I'm like, okay. And when it comes to it, like they had to put me in the full racer outfit and the helmet and all that kind of stuff. And the Chris Ulrich, I'll never forget this dude's name because I realized like he literally had my life in his hands for probably a solid 15 minutes. But he was like, all right, you just got to hold on. At certain
points, also your life on his knees.
Yes, yeah. He's like, you just got to hold on to me tight. And when I lean, you lean and don't let go. And I'm like, okay. And we get on.
I did not plan on letting go.
No, we got on. And it is, the amount of like G's that you are pulling, I just kept thinking like, holy shit, if I like release my arms just even a little, I'll fly off the back of this bike and I'm dead. I'm just dead. Like the only thing keeping me safe was my own arm strength.
If I sneeze, I'm gonna end up as road paint.
Yes, exactly. And also they didn't tell me how many times we were gonna go around the track. I assumed once. Well, we went around once and we kept going. We ran around 7 or 8 times. I was like, when does this end? I have no way of communicating with anyone. All I want to do is call my mom and cry right now. It was very cool, but at the same time, I was like, I needed to be more prepared for this. And when we got off the bike, they said when we hit the straightaway of the track, I think we were going like 176 or something like that. That was the fastest we got. which is insane.
No,
Uh,
that's a no.
Yeah.
That's not something you spring on someone. That's
No.
was it.
You do with your G4.
Well, I think it's a good thing that G4 starting back up. So maybe it's a good thing that we're working from home at this point.
Yeah. And then I'm a little bit older and have a little more sense in my head.
Of course, then like, okay, we're gonna do the thing again. What? And then he's like, you see the biker pull up outside. It's like, get in, loser. We're going drifting.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I drifted a car. I definitely did that when I was at G4.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right, just like basic drifting or like full Tokyo drifting around tracks and stuff.
I was taught how to drift in a parking lot. So he was doing the like real drifting, but then, you know, when I did it, it was just like, yay.
Seems that your career on G4 has been very educational in unorthodox ways.
Yes, it definitely was.
All right. So back to even just hosting Ninja Warrior. I gotta ask, Ninja Warrior, American or original? Which one's better?
Oh, that's a little bit like comparing apples to oranges. Like they're both fruits, but they're very different fruits. Because Ninja Warrior, Ninja Warrior doesn't take it as seriously as American Ninja Warrior now does. Like
It's a lot more characters.
Yes, exactly. It was purely entertainment based, which is why when that guy Nagano was like the first one to actually complete the whole course, people were like, wait, it can happen? You know? it was sort of never intended to actually be one, I don't think. And then it was like, oh, well, we can beat this. Maybe we'll try a little harder. And then, you know, leave it to the Americans to swoop in and be like, oh no, we are going to conquer this course once and for all. So
We're gonna get Stephen Amell in here to show you.
Yes, yeah. So they just both had very different vibes. But even with it going to, you know, I worked on American Ninja Warrior while I was at G4. And then when it went over to NBC, it kind of switched gears a little bit and became much more about this ultimate athlete type competition, which is great and cool. It's not, I don't diss it. It's just different than what the original spirit of the show was.
This is like, so you want to be a video game protagonist?
Yeah.
So you want to be Nathan Drake? Time to test your skills.
Yeah, basically.
I feel like nothing can compare to the joy of seeing, like on the original one, seeing Octopus Guy or Hang Glider Guy and see the mug for the camera and just know, oh, honey, you're not going to give us the second obstacle.
Water, yeah.
You're going to hang glide straight into a watery grave, my friend.
Yep.
So you're a self-described geek. Do you find that it's a lot more accepted now in years past, or than in years past?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of nuts that, you know, being a geek or being a nerd is cool now, because that's not what it was when I was growing up. And I mean, I'm absolutely here for it. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that, but my cat's losing his mind right now. I don't know why. The joys of shooting from home.
Yeah, we take precautions over at the studio here. We have like the cats in another room, and we had to
that's smart.
Like tie the doors together to make sure that
I locked him in my bedroom before this.
Yeah, because if you don't put them somewhere else, like our cats will just go up to the door and be like, "I'm in."
Yeah, exactly. Well, if he comes over here, maybe I can get him to make a cameo. We'll see. But wait, now I completely forgot what I was talking about. What was I
talking about like a geek culture being.
Oh yeah, being a geek.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is funny though. I will say that even though I feel like geek culture has sort of permeated pop culture as a whole, it's funny to me when I still meet people who don't like speak the same language in a way, you know, I could mention Doctor Who and they're like, yeah, what's the phone box thing that they travel around in? And I'm like, how does not everyone know this by now, you know?
Like you can't walk 5 steps without somebody just popping out a Doctor Who reference. Like you see,
Yeah.
I see at least 3 different cards on a single trip that have the my other card is a TARDIS.
Yes, exactly.
What do you feel is like the very essence of being in geek culture?
I mean, really, if you want to just boil it down, it's just being extremely passionate about something. Like you don't necessarily need to be a geek about comic books or video games. You could be a geek about motorcycles, you know? You're still a geek.
Yeah.
Or technology, or
Yes.
engineering.
Yeah. Or cooking, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's just being very passionate about something and being proud of that passion.
Yeah, we certainly dealt with the cooking geek variety with Madeline Smithburg previously, so we know how that is. What do you think originally, or like, what do you think kicked off the modern geek renaissance?
Well, I think the internet, I'm sure, had a lot to do with that. I think people being able to find, you know, their own kind outside of their hometown easier. I mean,
interconnectivity of it all.
Yes, I mean, and especially since, you know, geek nerd culture tends to coincide with being tech savvy. Being a nerd or being a geek and finding your fellow people online came quicker to the geek community than the layman, you know. Yeah.
Because previously to that, if you're really into something, if there wasn't somebody who also knew a lot about it in your general vicinity, you were basically alone.
Right, exactly. And that's when you felt ostracized, and that is, you know, how being a nerd or being a geek kind of got a bad rap in a way.
And now, as long as you can find some wiki page on what you're interested in, then you can find a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
Really inspiring.
You know, if Facebook wasn't actively like destroying society, it's actually a really good thing to help people find each
Yeah. Well, we're talking about the internet. Such a good way to like get everybody connected and like find people who share your interests. And then let's talk about the bad Bo Burnham presence of the internet, where it's like, welcome to the internet.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a genius song that he did.
Yeah, it was
I mean,
very.
that whole special was amazing, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm having to take it like little bits at a time though, because each one is like, this is really well done, but also I think it's hurting my soul.
Yeah. I had a moment watching it and I was like, oh, I'm not okay, but that's okay. You know, we're all dealing with a lot of crap after the last 18 months of existence. So I think taking a moment to be like, oh yeah, I should have been affected by that, and I should not be totally through it yet, is a good acknowledgement.
On a lighter note, let's talk games for a minute. Do you prefer video games or tabletop games?
Oh, it completely depends on the type of game. I in terms of tabletop games, I like ones where, you know, it's definitely multiple people. You get involved with your own personalities. I really like the games that are the players versus the game, not the players versus each other. Those games I always get a big kick out of.
Do you play D&D?
I do. I actually am in an ongoing campaign, and we meet tomorrow night. I'm very excited. We meet once a month. So.
And by all means, tell us about your character.
Oh, I am a halfling rogue.
Hey, me too.
Really?
Yeah, like
It's
halfling
great.
rogue. Did like 3 levels in wizard, and like I started like mostly in rogue, and yes.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
the best part
amazing.
about it is that you're just so tiny and stealthy and acrobatic,
Yeah.
and that's what I like. Because I am not someone. I am not the person who like wants to Leroy Jenkins into anything. I'm like, I want to hide. I want to pop out and shoot something, and I want to hide again, and like maybe do a flip. And that's how I want to play.
And for you see, right before your very eyes, I will turn this random patch of air into a hiding spot.
Yeah, basically, I did something in our last meetup where I was like, okay, I was like hiding behind like a island in a kitchen thing. And I was like, okay, I want to jump up, do a flip, shoot that guy in the head, and land on the other side. So I'm still hiding. And our DM was like, do you want to use your inspiration point to do that? And I was like, no, I'm acrobatic as hell. I'm just going to be able to do this with my roll. He's like, all right. And I totally rolled it.
And how did it work out?
Great.
Wait, you did?
Yeah, I totally did it.
Yeah, that would be the point where I was like, yeah, I don't need the inspiration, I got this. And then the karmic hand of God falls down on your dice for a 2.
Listen, I'll be honest, I think I rolled an 8, but my acrobatic is +7, so I still made it.
I think I got my acrobatics at least up to a +10, and then like stealth, I got it on +13.
We've been playing the same characters for a long time.
Yeah, we don't really like playing other characters, so I've been playing this character since let's see, when I was 12, I think.
Right before your
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, right before my bar mitzvah. So yeah, we've been playing. Me and my group have been playing these characters for a long time.
Oh, that's so cool. That's awesome.
And quite often, if we don't need to do combat and we could just do some serious bullshittery in order to trick the boss, we will.
Yes.
Like, and it's like a giant, it's a big, was it a chromatic dragon or something like that? Anyway.
We've killed like 3 dragons.
Yeah, there was like one of these encounters. The big bad guy doesn't see us, so we cast darkness. What was it?
Darkness.
Darkness and the one with the demonic.
The Hunger of Hadar.
Hunger of Hadar. And then we kept having one of the familiars be in there and yelling out, pretending to be a helpless baby dragon. And the boss just stayed in there while we kept taking pot shots at it from a distance. And he just died without us taking a hit.
Oh, that's so smart, though. That's definitely the best way to go about it.
Only a move this smart could be this dumb.
Yeah, no doubt. 3 dragons. We've killed 3 dragons already.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And also started a local pie company in Sandpoint.
Oh yeah, no, we're titans of industry.
Yeah. Not only adventurers, but entrepreneurs.
Yes.
You have a pie company? That's amazing.
Yeah, we got like a pie company. We got a clothing line company with one of the players that left a little while back. And we've got...
I think we own the Rusty Dragon now.
Oh yeah, we own the Rusty Dragon Inn, so...
Oh, good. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely always own a pub when you can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Can't be
Oh, and it's also brothel.
Oh yeah, it also doubles as a
No, the Pixie Kitten's a brothel.
Yeah, Pixie Kitten's a brothel, but now we also converted it into the Rusty Dragon into a temple for Thor.
Oh, perfect. Good.
Through a strange series of events.
Yes.
Of course, that doesn't really narrow it down when it comes to D&D.
No, it doesn't.
But back on track. What other kinds of tabletop games do you like?
Oh, well, I mean, you know, outside of the RPG dice-based games, I'm just a big fan of like board games that bring people together but aren't like overly complicated, you know? Yeah. Although there is this game I love by Yellow it's called Bunny Kingdom, and it's one of those games that the best way to teach it to someone is to just start playing. And then it's like by the time you finish the game, the other person has a really good idea of how to play it. But it takes almost an hour to play through a full game. So by the time you finish the game, the other person knows how to play. It's normally like, well, I don't want to play a whole other hour-long game again, you know? So that's the one that I'm like, I need more people to know how to play this game so I don't have to teach it to someone on the first time out.
Well, circling back to the other side of this token, video games, What is your all-time favorite video game?
Well, a series of games, it's Uncharted for sure. Uncharted and Portal are very, very neck and neck with me because they both involve solving puzzles, and they both have these really awesome storylines, and that's why I want to play video games. Like, I'm not someone who plays games online with other people, like, and I know that that's basically the way people do play games these days, but I've always been the person who's like, I want to sit by myself on a couch, or maybe with one other person sitting next to me, and just lose myself in the storyline of the game.
Games like Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, Last of Us is, I mean, that's a work of art.
Yeah. Then modern titles like Ghost of Tsushima or Horizon Zero Dawn, like you just get into the character.
Right, exactly.
Plus, it helps when you get something like Portal, where it's like got really tight controls, and as long as you're able to figure it out, or like it starts with simple mechanics, and then it gives you time to just play around with it.
Right, and I think Portal 2, I think, is like the best co-op experience of just having another person sitting next to you and like finding your way through this game.
Yeah, and quite often fighting with the other player because they keep killing you.
Yeah.
Thus, therein lies the problem of trying to find someone to play it with you because they keep trying to kill you.
Yeah.
Although, like, honestly, that co-op is probably I like that co-op just for one simple reason, in that you can ping things within the game to get your partner to look at, so that you don't have to go all the way up to the screen and be like, right here.
That thing, yeah. Or like, look to the right a little, look to the right. No, too far. Look left.
Every time.
Yeah.
And it definitely doesn't help if the person you're playing with doesn't know her right from her left.
Shut up. Nobody likes you.
Every time.
Great. Now you're telling people about my disability.
Hey, as long as it's funny.
It's not. It's terrible. It's so mean.
Hey,
I'm sorry.
This is this sometimes.
It doesn't help. So the big question that we're asking all the guests this season: if you could bring back any 2 people from the dead for 24 hours, who would you bring back, and what would you do with them?
Wow. Man, okay, I gotta think about this. One would be my grandfather. Just so I could like sit down and have a proper meal with him, because he passed away when I was 20. So I was an adult, but I wasn't, a full-fledged adult yet. And I would really love to like sit down with him, be able to like speak eye to eye about life and everything. I because he was such a knowledgeable man, and I feel like I could learn so much more from him now that I'm capable of understanding so much more.
Just see if you can wrap everything up, just get a sense of finality to the lessons.
Yeah. And okay, who else? You know what? I just came back from a trip to New York, and my mother and I walked through strawberry fields in Central Park, and there was something about that moment where I was like, yeah, I gotta remember that John Lennon was somehow so iconic that he was assassinated, and the whole world shifted because of it, And so I think there's something about maybe just being able to sit down and have a drink with him just to figure out what it was about this person, besides his obvious like God-given talent as a musician, what it was about him that made him sort of transcend just being a musician.
Yeah, because you definitely got those people throughout history where like you got regular artists or musicians or anything like that, but then they seem to be on like another level.
Yeah.
Like, what they do just is able to inspire you in a way that you didn't know was there before.
Right.
And also definitely kicked off the tone of the 80s as a signal of the end of the optimism of the 60s with his death.
Yeah.
So maybe it would be good to like bring him back today, see if I get a little bit more hope in the world.
Right. Dear John Lennon, can you fix this? Signed, the world.
John Lennon, world bad, fix.
Yeah.
No, I can't.
Well, that was very, very insightful. And I think that's about the time that we have for today. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love what you're doing with this. It's a great quarantine project you came up with.
Thank you. Well, we tried starting it just on the regular TSTV, but that quickly had to change to a different plan.
Yeah.
Though, honestly, it seems like the opposite is happening with G4 coming back in the pandemic.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of, I'm not working with the new network directly, but it's interesting because I think they announced over a year ago at this point, and they've just been so hindered. I mean, like everything in the world has, they've just been so hindered about like actually getting off the ground because of this pandemic. So it sounds like the launch is coming real soon, but I'm interested to see what that looks like.
It was definitely strange to see, like, okay, yeah, suddenly, wait, Adam Sessler is making new content? What?
Yeah.
My childhood.
God, your childhood. It was literally like my first job out of college.
Way to make the guest feel old, Zan.
I always do this. I'm sorry. I don't mean
it's
to
okay. I'm used to it. People coming up to me and being like, I used to watch you every day in high school. I'm like, oh my God.
No, he was in elementary school.
Oh, okay. So you're even younger.
And now you're
Why
making
are
the
you
guest
allowed to
feel old.
watch G4 that young?
Oh, he had a very eclectic upbringing.
And I watched a lot of content which parental advisory boards would deem unfit.
Got it.
I remember the day that that I saw the review for the initial demos for the 4th Sly Cooper game. And then a couple of years later, I realized how wrong I was.
Awesome.
And on that note, I think this would probably be a good place to stop. Alison Haislip,
Great
everybody.
chatting with you, Xander. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Alison Haislip, everybody. We'll be right back.
Okay, thank you very much for watching. To the 5 of you who consistently watch the show. To everybody else, what you doing, man? Subscribe, tell your friends, get the word out there. We got a good thing going on here. Another good thing going on here, the interview with Alison Haislip, who we thank very much for coming on the show and telling some very interesting stories, including the motorcycle thing, because that was a lot. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, it is what it is.